This is Eastman's Elevated podcast. I have on great guests that are really knowledgeable, consistently successful. We're able to dive deep down the rabbit holes of these different subject matters of shooting, of physical fitness, of mental toughness and drive. All the different skills that make up a complete hunter that you can become.
Here's your host, Brian Barney.
Hey, what's happening, guys? I got a brand new Eastmans Elevated for you. So this week I have back on Dan Pickar. It's been a while since I've had Dan on the podcast, but he's just a great guest and a great human being. I really like the guy, and I can really relate to him. He's bow exclusive, and he's always working on his craft. He's just a great shot, great under pressure. He's driven, in good shape. He's got all the necessary attributes to be consistently successful, and then he constantly applies himself and works hard at it. So he's just the perfect guest. I always draw information from our conversations, the similarities and also the differences. And these are the conversations that make me a better bow hunter. And so these are the episodes that I'm so excited to put out to you guys. It's just littered with great intel on hunting public ground and what it takes to be successful. So today is a special treat. Like I say, Dan is a great guest. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I know you guys will enjoy today's episode. Sponsor for today's show is Sitka Gear. Sitka is just building the best technical hunting clothing out there. I'm so impressed with their camo patterns, how, if you freeze in wide open terrain, those animals just don't see you. I love that new subalpine pattern. That open country pattern is just as good. They build all the technical gear that you need to do these extreme hunts, and they keep you more comfortable out there. So they've got hot weather gear, mid-season gear, cold weather gear, great layering. They've really got into the hoodies lately, which I love because I love hooded gear to regulate my temperature and to keep the sun off me. I am in love with Sitka clothing. I use it for practically everything I do outside, and it's just the absolute best gear made. And they keep evolving their gear. Their fit is so, it fits me so well and everybody I know so well. I really like their fit. I like their fabrics they're using, their technical fabrics that they've just kept evolving over the years. And then their features, the different zippers, like I've got my jacket, this Jetstream jacket. It's got pit zips on it, and so you can zip open the armpit when it's raining, and you can cool yourself down that way and regulate your temperature if you're hiking and when it's cold. And like this year I did this late season hunt. I've been hunting this late season where it's been 0 degrees or colder, and with the wind chill 20 to 30 below, and I've been able to be comfortable and be out all day long hunting and chasing these rutting mule deer, just with my Sitka clothing. And I know my buddy Dan, like, he was freezing the other day, like it's been now a couple weeks since we went on that hunt, but it was cold, and I know he was freezing. And so he went home. The first thing he did is he started ordering some of the puffy pants, and ordered a new puffball jacket, and ordered a bunch of stuff from Sitka that I know he's super psyched with. But they're just a great company, and I couldn't be prouder to represent them here on the podcast. So thanks to those guys. If you guys are looking for any new gear for the next year, make sure you check out Sitka. And with that, Eastman's. Gosh, we're getting ready. I'm going to go to a couple shows this year. I'm really excited about that. Going to go to the ATA, and I think I'm going to go to the Western Expo there in Salt Lake. So I think I'm going to go to those couple shows, going to try to get some really good guests on and record some good episodes. I just got some great episodes coming up I'm super excited about, this being one of them. I'm really excited to release this to you guys. It's just a great conversation on public land hunting the West. Just so much great information in it. So excited to release this one, and just excited where the podcast is headed. I always talk about working hard at it, but it's just constantly thinking about it and coming up with new ideas, taking notes before I get a guest on, and really trying to get the most out of the conversations too, and the most out of the guests. I want the guests, when they come on this podcast, I want them, I want them to be their very best, and through that is with the questions that I ask and answer. And I know early in the podcast, I maybe talk too much. I mean, I like having a conversation on the podcast, but I definitely got to give those guests a platform to speak, and then ask the right questions to get the right information out of them. So, just always improving my game, and then I'm so focused on bow hunting and being the very best I can be, and improving my shooting and fitness and research and planning good hunts. I am just so driven for this upcoming year, and when I'm driven, I think it comes through on the podcast. So, anyways, I better get right into this. So this is Dan Pickar and I, Eastmans Elevated. Here we go. Oh, good to go, man. You've had a busy hunting season.
Yeah, it's been really busy. It's finally starting to slow down a little bit.
Yeah, every time I try to catch up with you, it's like you're at the office for a day or two, and then you're off again on some other hunt. It looks like you've been hunting a lot for yourself, but also with other people and filming and all your other obligations, huh?
Yeah. A couple friends drew some tags this year. My dad drew a Breaks elk tag, and it's been a roller coaster like always. I think I did like 12 or 13 hunts this year, including my own. So, super busy.
Was that giant bull you killed? Was that your dad that killed that?
Yeah.
Oh man, good for him. What a stud of a bull.
Yeah, it was pretty insane.
Oh, I mean, that's a great tag to have, but it's too, like, it isn't easy. You don't just show up on a good tag and harvest the biggest animal there. Like, you got to go out and hunt for it. And those animals, like, even in that country, they're so high pressure and been hunted so hard, they get tucked away in little holes and that stuff and can be tough to find, I would imagine.
Exactly. No, that's exactly it. And I think a lot of guys get distracted on, 300-inch bulls, and they shoot those, and those are great bulls. But to find, a giant, you got to pass up some smaller bulls. And that's exactly what we did. Is we hunted for 3 or 4 days there, and just saw smaller bulls. And we kept working this drainage that had a big timbered north face. And, finally, like 10 days into the season, the Muy Grande showed up, and just hiding in that dark timber north face, caught him out in a pocket, and got him killed.
Oh, dude, just amazing. Yeah, well, I like to just roll these podcasts nowadays just from the start, just because I have such good, authentic conversations, the 10 minutes leading up to when I press record. So we're recording now and going for it. But, man, what an awesome bull. That thing was truly next level. Those things, you talk about hiding in a north face slope. Like after the rut, those bulls just put away in the best hidey spots they can find, or hidey holes they can find. And I found even in that open country like that a lot of their traveling and a lot of their feeding is done in open timber or bottoms where you can't glass them very well, but they just have a knack for finding that country. But truly a next level bull, man. That thing was awesome. He had to be awesome just to hold him.
Yeah, he's one of those bulls that, you maybe see once every 10 years. And if you're lucky enough to kill him, that's, even a bonus really. But, it's tough. We walked 4 miles in every morning for 5 mornings. So an hour before dark, hoofing it in there and just on a massive vantage point. And like you said, the bulls, after a week of hard rifle pressure, they move around a bit and they end up on these north faces, and we're just looking over a massive amount of country and caught him on the edge of the timber. And at first light, I glassed up a little raghorn. He was with the little raghorn, and I didn't see the big bull initially. He was actually bedded in the timber already. And so it just goes to show you how smart those old bulls are. But that little raghorn is what gave him away.
Those little bulls and little bucks, sometimes they just give away those spots where the big ones are hiding. So you spotted the little one and then started dissecting it a little bit further and then spotted him bedded in the timber. Is that how it went down?
Yeah, I saw that little raghorn first thing. He was down in the bottom, and I was like, oh, he's just a little squeaker. And so I moved down the ridge and I looked down another drainage, and I saw some more bulls and some cows, and just nothing worth looking at too close. And I'm like, I want to check on that little raghorn again. And so I looked back in there at a different angle, And before I even put up the binos, I could see a body in the scattered ponderosa pine in there. And I could see a body, and then I threw up the binos, and I was like, holy smokes. Like, I could tell he was 1,100 yards away, but I could tell like his frame was mega. And so I was like, holy smokes. So I'm shaking, I'm getting out the tripod and spotter, and I get the spotter on him, and I can just see him turn his head, and you just see his tine length, and you're like, next level. So didn't expect anything that big. We actually went in there that 5th day, just ready to shoot a solid bull. My dad's never killed a bull elk in his life, for crying out loud. So I was like, if we can get him a solid bull, with a 320 or something, that'd be fantastic. And so our standards really weren't that high. And I don't know, like when you least expect it, the super monster steps out, and it's either kill him or not. So it gets better and better. I'll keep going if you want me to, Brian. So my dad was down the ridge, and I'm texting him. I'm like, get over here quick. And he's like, okay, I'm coming. And I mean, he's 61 years old, and he's got asthma. He's not in the best shape. And so I'm sitting there watching this giant for, probably 15 minutes. And this coyote starts howling down below us in the creek. And he didn't really care. He's looking around. And so I'm like, dude, this thing is giant. My dad's shooting a 7 mag. I mean, let's get within 400 yards and shoot this thing. And so he finally, shows up, and I didn't really want to even say how big he was. I thought he was 350 to 360, but it's kind of another story to that when we walk up on him later, I'll tell you about. But we just make a run for it. Basically, it was a perfect approach, plenty of timber, and we had some terrain to work with. And it's all, I mean, how the breaks are. It's all gumbo. It's some of that soft dirt, and so it's easy sneaking. And so we're slipping down through the timber, and I'm looking, and we get down to the edge of the timber, and both bulls are alert, and they're looking in the creek. And the big one, is on his feet, and he's on the edge of the really dark timber, like gone forever dark timber. And so I'm like, crap, we must have pushed that coyote into him, or a mule deer or something, but we never saw anything, but they were alert. And so we're 650 yards away, and this bull, this giant's about ready to step in the timber, and he does. He stepped in the timber, and I'm looking at the north face, and I see 2 little lanes in front of him, probably like 40, 50 yards in front of him, that we may have a chance at him in. And so we hauled butt down the hill and wrapped around and got on this little bench, and we cut off another 150 yards. So we're 500 yards from these things. And I guess the backstory a little bit, my dad is, he taught me how to shoot and the importance of a good rest and shooting prone. And he practices, and he knows the trajectory of his rifle. He's not a turret guy at all. He shoots milk jugs out to 450 yards, and he learns the trajectory of his bullet. And so we talked about him, like 500 yards, where are we going to hold? This is Kentucky windage. It's straight Kentucky windage, but he knew his drop. I mean, how thick an elk chest is. And so he kind of winged it a little bit, but as soon as we get to 500 yards, this bull is standing broadside in the lane, and I'm ranging him for him. I'm getting the camera set up and everything. And just before Dad is like feeling solid and ready to shoot, the bull steps into the dark timber. And I was like, crap, well, there's another little lane in front of him. So I'm just kind of communicating with Dad and making sure he's got his bearings and he knows what he's looking at. And instead of going forward, this bull kind of loops up around and comes back, and he's back into the same lane. And he's got some junipers in front of him. And this bull is like perfectly broadside, maybe slightly quartering away, 510 yards. And I still don't know how he did it, but he's rock solid. I was communicating with him, and he held the crosshairs basically halfway between his ears and his back, Kentucky windage, if that makes sense, like over him. What I mean?
Like trying to get 36 inches above the spot you want to hit or whatever.
Exactly. We discussed 38 inches of drop at that range, and that's what we talked about, and that's what he shot for. And so literally this bull turns his head. It's the last lane. He's at the top of the hill, and Dad sends it. Shoots. You can see the bullet just arc out there. And there was some junipers kind of over his belly. and up towards the front of his chest, but he just dropped that bullet right in over the junipers, right into the shoulder of that bull. It was I mean, I've guided a lot of hunters, been on a lot of hunts. I've seen some really incredible shots by guys with rifles, but the shot was legendary. I don't know if I could have done that, like heat of the moment, Boone and Crockett bull in your crosshairs, first elk ever, and you frickin' slam dunk. Unbelievable.
Oh, what a shot. Yeah. Like you say, you've seen a lot of good shots made. I'm sure you've seen a lot of bad shots too. Like, it's not a given with a rifle. Even practicing with them in the moment with that adrenaline to make that kind of shot, that's amazing. Good for him.
Yeah, nerves of steel. And once again, conditions were perfect. There was no wind. It was first thing in the morning and broadside and everything, and a nice prone rock solid rest. But I mean, I give him that. He may not be an elk hunter, but he's a shooter, and he knows what it takes to put it where it needs to be. And man, he did it right in front of my eyes. Almost started crying.
Oh man, I think I would have. Yeah, that's amazing, man. Yeah, those old codgers, man, they can shoot. My grandpa was in the military. I don't think I've ever seen him miss a deer. Like, he's just good in the crunch, You give him a shot and he's gonna knock it down. I remember being a kid and watching him make 300-400 yard shots in western Washington, in logged off country, but shots that you just don't practice for. But yeah, Grandpa doesn't miss. He's on the mark. Sounds like your dad's on the mark. Knows his gun really well. Like, there's so much that goes into being a good shot, and practicing on those milk jugs, like shooting targets at 450 yards. Like, he was comfortable. He knew where he had to aim, and then made it all come together and executed, which is just amazing under that intense amount of pressure. But good for you guys. What a bull.
Yep, definitely pretty exciting. I mean, it's got to be the highlight of my hunting career to experience that with my dad on a 375 gross bull. I just don't know. I mean, in reality, score doesn't really matter, but it does. I mean, we're all into elk. We all love to kill big animals, and so it's just that much more cool to kill an old, weathered down, rutted up, worn out giant. I mean, it doesn't get any better.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Well, and how important, like, finding those animals, like, you just have to be in country and in looking, but it, like, your guys' approach to finding those critters, hiking in 4 miles every day to what I picture as the absolute master vantage point in there that just shows so many drainages and so many spots, but you had been looking there for days and hadn't turned up that bull, but just believing in that vantage point and hiking to that vantage point instead of, like, hiking through that breaks country and down all the coulees and up and hoping to get lucky and bounce into one. You kept to your guns and kept to your approach and kept getting to that master vantage point, and then eventually there he is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It always comes back to mental toughness when you kill a giant or even just make a kill. It always comes back to mental toughness. And if you know how to hunt an animal, or if you know how to hunt a species, believing in the process, right? And so if you can believe in what you're doing, and with some experience, you can develop a kill plan or develop, a program that is going to make you successful if you believe in it. I mean, it's just a matter of sticking with it. And like we've discussed, those breaks elk, they move around so much. And if I truly believe you do the same thing every day, or not every day necessarily, but if you go do the same thing for 3 or 4 weeks of the Montana general season, you're going to see new bulls every week. And it's a fact, especially out there. You see new bulls every week as they get pushed around and pressure from all different areas. And if you find an area where the elk like to be, you can't beat it. That's what I believe. You have to do the same thing over a course of weeks if you have the time. And you never know what's going to come up out of there, because you've hunted the breaks too. You can go a long ways and not find an elk in the breaks. I mean, even in some of the best units, it's definitely possible, and all that country looks the same. And so, yeah, once you find where they like to be, stick to it.
Yeah, believing in your game plan. I remember when I was hunting, and I cut my teeth hunting elk, and with my bow, and then I'd hunt them during rifle. I was just into getting big mature ones, like big mature 6 points. That's how I started. And so I had these couple buddies that really introduced me into glassing. And so, I had binoculars and I had spotting scopes and I would look around, but these guys believed so much in their glass and getting to the master vantage points. And it's been 15 years now, and I've taken that approach to my mule deer hunting and my elk hunting, but believing in it, it isn't just looking through your glass, it's finding those master vantage points that give you the best look at country, and then hiking to those, being at those at the right time. So you're at the right place at the right time, and it shows you what lives in there. But believing in your glass and getting there day after day is so key. Like I was just hunting mule deer this past weekend, and I found this vantage point, but it's such a sweet vantage point. It just lays out all these drainages that these muleys like. But getting there, it's amazing. You can look over the deer, and you can look for a little bit, for a half an hour or so, you still don't see all the bucks. Like you have to sit on that vantage point for 2-3 hours, and they just keep appearing, and they're rutting right now. And so those bucks are moving through country, and you pick up bucks that you didn't even know were there just by staying on the vantage point and believing in your vantage point and keep glassing, But it's amazing what shows up. I think so many guys, they pull up to a vantage point or maybe hike to a vantage point, you look around, you don't see what you're looking for, and they move on to the next one. But believing in that thing and sitting there and looking and watching and turning up all those critters, just like you had turned up that satellite bowl, and then I would do the same thing. I'd keep glassing around, but I'd go back to that satellite bowl and see what's happening. And same thing with those deer. I'd go back to all the little groups of does that I had seen, and there was no buck with them then, but then all of a sudden I'll catch a 4-point moving through there, and now I've got a buck I can go after, or, maybe I'll spot another one moving. But it's just amazing what those vantage points show you. But believing in it and believing in your theories and your approach, it's so important to being successful.
Yep, absolutely. And the breaks are the epitome of that. There's so many nooks and crannies, and a lot of those bulls, especially those big ones, they slip into the timber, within the first 15 to 20 minutes of light. And we sat there for the whole first day, and we didn't see all of the elk until dark of that evening. Like new bulls popped out, the last hour of the first day that we didn't see in the morning. And so, you have to spend a day or two to really cover that country and be able to find everything that's in there, because they can hide so well. And that's why those massive vantage points, like you're describing with your mule deer spot, are so important. Look over as much country as possible and look it over for at least a day and a half. And it doesn't matter if you're hunting elk or mule deer in western Wyoming or whatever. It takes a day and a half at least to find everything.
Yeah, you have to know when to move, but you definitely don't want to move too quick or off a good vantage point too quick. And I remember this one pretty good bull I shot with my rifle. It's been 15, 20 years now, but there was 7 bulls, and they were working off this deep dark timber, and they'd work down the faces and they'd feed the faces, and I caught them one day doing it. And so I'd be up there in the dark, and I'd try to catch them coming back in, or up there in the dark, up there before dark, and I'd catch them coming down. And I hunted these bulls for 7 days straight, and for 7 days they crossed in the dark. And some days I could even see them in the snow in the moonlight crossing up through there, but they'd cross in the dark back and forth every day. They were just high pressure elk, and they had this tight program. But eventually they made a mistake, and I was up there on the 7th day, and me and my dad both shot 2 really good bulls, 2 320 plus bulls with our rifle in the same day. But the only reason we did is because I caught them with my glass, and then I stuck to my game plan. I knew they were crossing back and forth. In 7 days straight, finally on the 7th day, they made a mistake. But you just gotta, what'd you call it, your hunting strategy and believing in it, and you just gotta keep to it, and eventually it works out.
Yep, absolutely. Just believing in yourself and believing in the process. It's amazing. It comes back to your mental game every time.
Oh, it so does. Believing in the process. That's what you said. I like that saying.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because you do have a process, the way you hunt country, and once you can believe in it, it's just a matter of time, just putting in the days. But man, good for you. And you had a great early season too. You had a bunch of bow hunts you went on. I saw some good critters come across my feed. So tell me about your season. You started off, probably hunted antelope first.
Well, no, I didn't hunt antelope this year. I didn't draw anything. It was a tough year in the draws for me, so I just had generals and that's it, deer and elk. But I started off in Oregon and did a helicopter drop hunt, and that was an August 25th opener. So I got out there early still, and it was a fun hunt. It's early season, open country, and they're acting like deer and not bugling at all. And I shot that 6-point on opening day, and it was great. It was fun. It was running and gunning in open country. Gotta love it.
So helicoptered in, was that due to the remoteness of the country or due to the private-public borders, or how come you decided to helicopter in?
Yeah, just for better quality experience. You got some big chunks of public that are surrounded by private that are otherwise inaccessible to the public. And so, just finding good hunting. And it was through an outfitter. We're doing a promotional thing for him. So it's through our outfitter buddy and colleague and friend. Ike and Guy, I've known him for years. And so it was a promotional thing for him. And so it's kind of his program and his routine that he did, but he's got it figured out. And, it's a nice little honey hole with some good elk hunting in the middle of private. It's, a few thousand acres in the middle of just solid private. So it's a good little spot.
Man, how cool. That's thinking outside the box. I have a spot in Montana that I'm dying to charter a helicopter, and I've called and got pricing on it, coming from the bigger city that it's next to, and it's just a block of BLM that these elk just refuge on. Gosh, one of these years, and it's not that expensive, really. It's not any more expensive than, hiring a horse drop camp or, even paying for some of these out-of-state tags that we get and hunts that we go on. It really isn't too much. I'm just dying to try that out. Has to be pretty fun riding in one of those things, too, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the whole experience from, sling loading gear in and riding in them. And, yeah, it's cool. And like you said, surprisingly cheap. I couldn't believe how cheap we were getting those rides and sling loads for per hour. I think it was like $150 an hour or something. And it took us, well, if you're close to a big city, it's not going to take you any more than an hour to go get dropped off. It's really not that money. And it depends on what bird you're using and how much fuel it uses, and that determines the price. But yeah, it's really not that expensive.
Huh. Early season elk, that's a tough endeavor, man. Before they go into the rut, they just really aren't moved into rutting ground. Seems like they're up high in bachelor herds, like you said, hunting them like they're deer.
Yep, exactly. They're just rubbing off their velvet and not rutting yet at all, but they were still acting like deer. And luckily, it's open country, and so you get some definite time of looking them over and glassing them up and watching them go to bed. And yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. If you like spot and stock hunting, you would really enjoy it. I know you would for sure.
Man, I love open country hunting. It's just my favorite. If I can see them, I can kill them, or at least that's the way I feel.
Yep, absolutely. Coming from Northwest Montana, I grew up in the Flat Valley, and I mean, it's all brush up there and closed off country. It's all tight and different tactics. And man, hunting open country is like a breath of fresh air. It's easy. Comparatively, it is.
It is. I take wide open sagebrush, and a lot of guys wonder how they're going to get close to the animal, but there's so many folds and rolls to the country. Yeah. I'll take them in wide open sagebrush and take my chances trying to get close. And don't get me wrong, I get stuck in open terrain too, where I can't move any further, I can't get closer, there isn't enough, but there's usually like something you can work with. And I think like all that open country antelope really helps a guy. And then, I say, I'm so drawn to open country, so I hunt elk in the open country and deer. And so you just kind of get used to it. And using your term, believe in the process and just believe that I can get close to those things. And it seems that I can make it happen if I can see them. Yeah,
exactly. It forces you to really work the topography in that open stuff. And yeah, I've heard the same thing. Guys just can't figure out, or they're like, I can't believe you're hunting in that wide open stuff. And it's like, oh man, I love it. I love it.
I have a hard time in the cover. Like I'm hunting these mule deer. Like even this past weekend, you'll see a buck and some good does, and they just put away, and you know the exact patch of timber that they put away in, but trying to sneak up on them in that stuff, they just like catch you between the branches, or it just seems like they're tougher to kill if I can't keep an eye on them or know exactly where they are. If I have deer bedded in the open or feeding in the open, like I can keep track of their ears and their mannerisms and what they're paying attention to and where they're looking. But when they're bedded in that timber and I'm just sneaking into that timber, it just seems like they're way more apt to catch me moving in than they are in the open when I can keep track of them.
Absolutely. That kind of just goes right into my mule deer hunt in western Wyoming this year. That's exactly what I was struggling with. And I was hunting some new country, and there's just so much timber. But these giant bucks live there because they're so hard to kill. And I found 2 bucks that had over 28-inch frames, giant 4x4 and another giant 3x4 that I thought they were both over 190. But there's so much timber, and they bed in that timber, and they're out in the open for such a short period in the morning and the evening that, man, it's so difficult to kill them in that sort of situation because of that timber. And like you said, and you can go try to stalk in blind into the timber, but the success rate's just so painstakingly low in a situation like that I did it once. I actually almost killed one of those giants, but yeah, we were out of there the next day and ended up blowing them out. But yeah, it's frustrating hunting, man. It definitely is.
I would think like that Hawaii makes you better at hunting thick cover because so many of those axis deer are in thick cover, and I like hunting them when I can catch them in the open. But those axis, it seems like it really improves like your still hunting game, like stalking through timber or thick brush where you don't know where the game's going to be and really taking your time trying to pick it apart with your binos. Like there's an art to that too, still hunting that timber where you know a deer is or where you don't know where a deer is.
Right. And I think the hardest part about that, and with most people, is the ability to slow down, like into slug mode, because that's exactly what you have to do. And I even struggle with it. It's tough. It's the toughest type of hunting that you'll do, but you just have to slow down. It's
right. And I don't know if you're better off, like, I guess in any scenario you run across, there's multiple different options and there is no, you can't put I'm 67% sure I'm going to kill this buck. Like you never know. It's like there is no odds chart. You just have to make your decision based on your experience and based on your instincts and so you see a buck, and like where I'm hunting now, I'll watch a buck go in the timber, and I don't know if I'm better off to try to get in that timber and still hunt him, or if I should wait until he feeds out in the evening or feeds out in the afternoon or ruts a doe, like getting to striking distance and then watch him come back out. But like you said on those Wyoming giants, it wasn't feasible because they're spending such short time in those feeding features. But it's always like I'm always trying to think in my brain what the right move is, and I guess the right move is when you actually kill the deer, and the wrong move is hindsight for every time that you mess it up.
Exactly. And every situation's different.
Well, and two, those animals.
That's what's hard.
Yeah. Well, and those animals are just going to win a lot. Like if you're a bow hunter, you're going to fail. Like that, it's a prerequisite to success. Is that you're going to have to fail over and over. And sometimes I'll get it done on my first or second stalk, and I really feel like I'm making all the right moves. But there's a lot of times where it'll take me 4 or 5 or 6 chances before I finally get it right. It's just you're going to fail. The animals are going to beat you. You just keep trying to learn from it and get better and try to make the right decisions.
Absolutely. That's all you can do. And it's funny because you can think you have a perfect stock or a perfect setup, and, it all gets blown up, and it's almost like the animal chooses you when it's time for him to be killed. Because sometimes you'll kill him when you least expect it, or when you're, making a stock that you think you have low odds, but you're trying it anyway. It's just funny, the nature of bow hunting and making kills like that. And I don't know, Murphy's Law has some sort of role in there. I don't know exactly what it is, but he's always has a role in if you kill one or not.
Man, isn't that the truth? Like, it is. It feels like it's meant to be when it finally comes together. But even the best scenario can fall apart right in front of your eyes. Your coyote, you can have a coyote that chases the deer. I had my biggest late season buck this year in Montana. I snuck up on him in his bed and had him at 50 yards bedded. I didn't think there was any way that I couldn't shoot that buck. I had a perfect wind, kind of quartering, but away from him and down the hill, and just waiting for him to stand. I was freezing. I was shivering because it was so cold and I had ditched my pack, but just waiting for him to stand to take my shot. And he stood up and he rubbed on the tree, and I had like a quartering towards, but it was just too small of a window to tuck that arrow with the wind, and waiting for broadside, and he beds back down. Well, then he gets up and he pins his ears back and goes for a different buck down in the bottom and just walks out of my life like I'm trying to get ranges and get drawn, and then he's just gone just like that. And like you say, the scenarios, they fall apart so easy, or you bust a deer you didn't see, or even the best laid stock or the highest percentage stock, it can fall apart right before your eyes. And so you're right, you just try to play your odds and don't stalk recklessly and try to get in and make something happen. And you never know when it's going to work out and when it isn't, but it does feel like it's meant to be when it happens.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how perfect you move and how, good of a setup if it is. It's like there's that level of luck that you need that you can't put a number on what level of luck you need, but you have to have some sort of luck for you to actually make a shot because of the situations that you're describing.
Yeah. I always try to get good karma in the hills. I'm always picking up garbage. Because luck, it does play a role in it, And so I'm always trying to do the right thing and do right by people and like just hoping it pays off for me. But it's amazing. Like sometimes I'll find myself in season, like I'll find an animal, and isn't that special when you find bucks like those nature, those 190 plus inch bucks, or like the bull that your dad killed, or you find one of those. I always say to myself, okay, I'd like to use my luck right now. Like this, like if I'll save it up all year, but let this be my one lucky chance, But finding those animals is one thing, man. Killing them's a whole different thing, especially with the bow. I found a giant mule deer this year in the early season and made a good stalk on him and a good play, and it just didn't come together for me. But it's a whole it's another beast to then harvest that quality animal that you found.
Exactly. That's the thing, is just finding them. It seems like such an accomplishment, let alone getting an arrow into them. It's mind-boggling how difficult it really is. But yeah, sometimes it's meant to be. It's meant to be, and if it's not, it's not. That's all you can tell yourself at the end of the day.
Well, and try to be your best self and be ready for the opportunities and be doing everything on your part to seize that opportunity, looking for your window, and then hoping your skills are up to par, and try to keep calm and keep your shooting mantra. Like it is still difficult to execute on animals. To execute a good shot on animals, I swear you're 20 yards worse than you are practicing in your backyard. If you feel like you can shoot 70 in your backyard, you better hold yourself to 50 out in the field. Like you're just worse. That adrenaline's going and that pin doesn't aim the same, and just trying to keep your composure and then pay attention to all those details, man, it's still difficult for me. I'm sure it's difficult for you. You make a lot of good shots, but it just isn't a given.
Absolutely. And that's, the idea with all the off-season bow hunting and, going to Hawaii or going to Australia or wherever, just to get the repetition of getting kills under your belt. That's why I do it. That's exactly why I do it, is because I want to be as ready as possible when it's the moment of truth and there's a super freaky, huge buck in front of me or a bull, and it all comes down to this. It's got to be routine, because there's so many other variables that are out of your control. It's got to be routine, and it's so difficult as it is. And so the more kills you get under the belt, the more bow hunting you do. I see it as preparation for that one moment in your life that you have a 220-inch mule deer in front of you. Can you keep it together? I mean, that's why I do it.
Oh man, that's why I do it too. It's so challenging and something that you never quite master, that you're always improving on. Like 20 years of bow hunting, and still every season, like even this off season, I'm just thinking about all the ways I can improve and get better, like just to be, more prepared for those situations in the backcountry where it comes. But I just absolutely love it, man. It's just something that you never master, that you're always working on. I think that's why I enjoy it so much.
Absolutely. And success is so difficult to come by. And that's why it's so overwhelming or so appealing to me, is that it's such hard earned success. and there's no better feeling in the world when it comes together. And maybe there's no worse feeling in the world when you do miss a giant. And that's why we love it. Absolutely.
Isn't that the truth? The highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And I don't think you can have one without the other. I think that's why they come together, because it will take you to your lowest point, and it'll also take you to your highest point when you are successful. So you arrowed that bull in Oregon, which was a really nice 6 point. You were muley hunting, and I think you were elk and muley hunting together, right? When you found those couple bucks?
Yeah, I was elk hunting. I love elk. I'd rather hunt elk. Do I dare say that? But I love hunting elk, and it was an elk kind of scouting mission, and I figured there'd be some deer in there too. And so, like any bow hunter, I'm an opportunist. And when I saw those giant deer, I was like, time to put elk on hold. So, and they weren't really bugling anyway. But yeah, I hunted those big bucks for like 5 days and until I ran out of food back there. And you just end up chasing your tail a little bit when you're hunting them in the timber like that. And you need some sort of miracle to get a shot opportunity when you're hunting that timber. But it didn't pan out. And right after that hunt, I went down to Colorado. I drew an elk tag in Colorado and hunted down there for 7 days. And I passed up 3 bulls down there, just raghorns and 5 points. And we ended up being like 6 miles in, and I'm not going to pack a 5-point raghorn 6 miles out. And my kind of unspoken goal is 6 points only is what I like to kill. It's my own goal I set for myself. And so I like to kill 6 points, and that's what I aim for. And it didn't happen in Colorado, but I don't know. It was a tough hunt, not a lot of elk, and they're very scattered throughout the unit. You go for a few miles and not even see one elk, and then you find a drainage and there's a whole bunch in there. And we had one good day of rut activity, and that was it. So it was beautiful country, high country, hunting there at tree line. And we did have one good day of rut activity and called in a few bulls, and just nothing great, but that's elk hunting too. So.
Man, it is. Well, I'm not that I'm glad to hear you be unsuccessful, but I'm just glad that we have similar experiences. Is that it's not every place I go that I kill a bull, and I have the same unspoken rule and law for myself. It's a mature 6 point or it's nothing. Like I won't, I've shot enough 5 points in my day, and they're just really heavy and tough to pack out. And plus, I just want to be happy with my harvest when I get done. And to me, that's a mature 6 point bull. But yeah, similar experiences. Elk. They can just be tough. They can be so spread out throughout country. There's a lot of places they're not, and you got to find those concentrations of them. And it sounds like you guys got into them there for a day and had pretty good rut in action, but just tough to keep in elk every day.
Yeah, and the muzzleloader hunt is right before, and so they get pushed around, and they're already spooky. And I did have a chance. I mean, it wasn't a great chance, but I snuck in on this herd bull, and it was one of 2 6 points that I saw, but it was freaking perfect. This thing was bugling at 3:00 in the afternoon. Had some nice up thermals, and I snuck in on him, and he had about 13 or 14 cows, and me and my camera guy looped around in front of him, and he pushed a cow right up to us at 18 yards, and he just stopped behind a tree, and he stood there, and he was just panting like a dog for 2 minutes. So get this, Brian, we're hunting at 11,200 feet, which isn't really that high, but it's high for anywhere out west if you're elk hunting. And when you're supposed to draw if you do it enough. And so this bull's pushing this cow up the hill, and he pushes this cow past us, and I draw my bow, and this bull stops behind the tree, and he's sitting there panting like a dog. And I held my bow for 1:45 total, but I had to let down. I was about ready to black out. I couldn't hold it anymore, and I don't know if I was fatigued or dehydrated, but like at 1:30, maybe 1:20, and 20 seconds is a long time when you're in the heat of the moment like that. But I'm getting dizzy. My eyes just started getting dizzy. I'm trying to take deep breaths there at full draw, and these cows are feeding closer. This cow within that minute and a half, she's 10 yards from me looking at me. So, I mean, it's over. You're either going to black out and fall over, or you're going to let down and blow them all up. So, I mean, it was the end of the deal, and he just never stepped out into the shooting lane. And I had to let her down because I was about ready to black out. I don't know if I could have hit 5 more seconds, but I kind of like fell down onto the ground, and I had to like put my head between my legs and get the blood flowing again. I'm sitting there taking deep breaths at full draw, and I'm like, I'm dizzy. I can't even focus and concentrate and look through my peep. It was the weirdest experience.
Ah, those big bulls, they sure have a knack for making the right moves even when they don't even know what's present. Oh man.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that holding your draw like a minute 30 is so long. Like if you were to describe that and didn't have it on video, you would have told me I held my bow for 5 minutes. That's what it feels like. It feels like you're holding your bow forever. Like I've even with a wrist strap release, I've grabbed the back of my neck with my hand and closed my eyes and just try to hold it there for as long as you can. Because you're right, if you can hold your draw and that bull walks out, he's a dead bull. But the minute you have to let down, the whole scenario blows up. But there's nothing you can do there, man. You held it till you about blacked out.
Oh yeah, and at that point, it's like I'm either gonna kill this bull or I'm passing out. I don't care, but I don't know. It was weird. Like you said, you're just pinching your shoulder blades and just trying to focus and concentrate and take some deep breaths. And I'm telling you, I mean, it was a minute 45. It was on video, and so I went and counted it. And I practice holding my bow for 2 minutes, at home. But it's totally different up there when you're hiking your butt off and you're fatigued. It's 11,200 feet. There's not a lot of oxygen up there. And after I let down, I don't know if I could have drew my bow back the rest of that day. That's how freaking burnt I was. I was just holding it forever. And so, yeah, it was quite the experience. But at the end of the day, you just have to shake your head and laugh at it because that bull could have been dead just as easy. It's just how it goes.
Man, yeah, you've got such a great mindset around it. That is what you have to do as a bow hunter. Like you want that opportunity. You've been working so hard for it, miles upon miles. You finally create it, and it's so close to happening, and it blows up. And the animals are just going to win sometimes, and you just got to chalk it up and laugh and go, well, I was close. At least that was thrilling, worth the price of admission is always what I say. For the hike, the drive, the whole deal, just to have a chance and get close and stalk. Like you have to just embrace it and laugh. That's all you can do.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And being able to get in on a big herd bull like that with his cows and just slipping in on there, I mean, that's what you strive for when those cows are on estrus, and just incredible elk vocalizations that you get to experience, and they're 10 yards from you. And the day before we called in a 5-point into 8 yards and called another raghorn into like 45. And so, yeah, I mean, it's worth it. Price of admission, like you said, I mean, it's worth it. That's all you can ask for. Sometimes you kill them, and sometimes you don't. That's bow hunting.
Yeah, well, and it and not that I don't take any joy in failure. I love hearing your successes, but I think our audience draws from it as well. It's just that, we watch you and we follow your social media, and I just see all these big 6 points come across my feed and go, man, Dan is just killing it. It's one after the next. Like he's just so proficient, so good, which you are. You're just a stellar bow hunter, absolute top of the heap, top 1%. But it's nice to hear these shortcomings and these downfalls and these periods where you don't harvest, where it doesn't come together, because I have so many situations like that where I'm so close, I just need the bull to take a step, or I just need this to happen or that to happen, and it falls apart right in front of me. And I've been bow hunting for so long, and I pride myself at being good at bow hunting, but I love to share these stories of when it doesn't come together for me, because it makes it like we can relate to it so much, because It's like, oh man, I had this encounter like that, or I had a bull that did this, or a buck that I missed, or whatever the scenario, because I've got a ton of those every year. And circling back around, like failure's just a prerequisite of bow hunting. Like persistence is what kills animals. You fell short on that one, but you just got to keep elk hunting, and eventually you did harvest another 6-point bull.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's all your mindset and keeping positive, and because elk hunting does kick your butt, and that's all it is persistence. And I don't care if you're a new bow hunter or if you've bow hunted for 45 years, you're still going to fail. You're still going to have unsuccessful hunts, and that's part of it. And that's kind of, on TV when we do our episodes and stuff, we only see, the successful hunts, but I don't know. It's probably 60 to 80% success, which is good for me, but there's still plenty of hunts you don't kill something on, or you just see small stuff and you don't shoot it, and that's just bow hunting. So yeah, failure is a part of it. And once again, that's why it comes back to, when you are successful, it's that much better. And that's the draw to bow hunting to me right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's just,
So,
yeah, it isn't just you or it isn't just me when I think of bow hunting and it didn't come together or I messed up that situation. It happens to all of us.
yeah,
You get better and you get more proficient and you get good at your trait and you kind of, your instincts kind of take over and you know kind of the right and wrong moves. And a lot of the times I make the right moves, but there's every once in a while that you make the wrong move or you just think, and hindsight's always 20/20. And if you didn't kill the elk or you didn't kill the buck, there's always a different move you could have made. And so you walk away from it going, man, well, I should have just came from the left. My wind would have been right. I would have came over the rise. Like you can see it so clearly after it happens, but that's only
yeah,
because you failed. When you succeed, you go, man, I made the right moves. That was a perfect stalk or a perfect scenario, but it's just part of bow hunting. Just live and learn, and you got to just keep putting forth the effort. So that bull didn't work out, but you
yep,
continued to elk hunt and you continued to go hard. You continued to backpack in different areas, try to find the rut fest, try to find the party, try to find another mature six, create another stock, and eventually
yep.
it's going to come together for you because again, you believe in the process.
Yep, yep, that's exactly it. And it's my mentality when it comes to elk hunting. I want to leave it all on the table. I don't want to be sitting in January regretting my effort or I'm feeling sorry for myself. Nah, that's not how I think and how I work. It's go, go, go to the end. And I know I won't regret my effort. I don't care how hard I try. I'm not going to ever regret how hard I try that winter. But if I don't try hard enough, I know I'll regret it because I've been there 15 years ago when I started elk hunting. But yeah, I was able to come back to Wyoming and hunt general elk. And yeah, you're really going to love this little quick story. I'll make it kind of fast, but a lot of my hunts this season came down to patience, which it always does. But I hunted a new area, found a lot of bulls, a lot of young bulls, called in some small bulls, finally found a nice solid 6-point, got into position. Later that morning, I glassed him up first thing in the morning and then spent the day getting up to him and kind of just got in position on the north face and played the wind. And I just kind of hung out that afternoon and he started bugling again and he pushed 3 cows down onto this finger ridge and it was an open face on this little finger ridge, a little open park on a south face surrounded by dark timber and aspens. And I was like, you know what? We got a good wind. They're in a good spot. I'm not going to say a peep to them. And so me and my camera guy, we just tiptoe down there like a couple tomcats and we get down to the base of the hill and we just move super slow. And there's some thick Doug fir there on the side of the hill and in the bottom. And we glass up the cows up on the side of the hill and there's no bull. And so we sat there for 45 minutes and we watched those cows feed as they slowly fed up the mountain from left to right. And that bull never showed. We're like, what the heck? Where is this bull? And so all the thoughts go through your mind. Should I call? Should I move? Should I slip up closer? Should we back out? Do I cow call? Do I bugle? And we just stayed put and we still had some good daylight left. And 45 minutes into sitting there, we were within bow range to those cows. They kind of fed up the hill a little bit. And all of a sudden, he just rips out a bugle. He was 50 yards from us the whole time behind 3 Doug fir trees laying there. And so that was a good example of just patience and once again, trusting the process, believing in the process that bull is in here. He's got to be, not forcing anything. And sure enough, he bugled a couple times. His cows were feeding up the hill. He walked right through my shooting lane. I had 45 minutes to rehearse everything. And as he walked through the shooting lane, I was at full draw and gave him a little chirp on the cow call and shot him perfect. So just being patient and believing he was there, there's no reason why he would have left. And we stayed quiet. Maybe if I was to bugle at him, he may have jumped up and come down to me, maybe. But I don't know. I just feel like that if I'm close to a bull in a situation and he doesn't know I'm there, I'm probably going to be quiet. And maybe that's just personal preference, but it worked for me in that instance.
Yeah, that's my preference too. Yeah, we have this saying on the podcast that I think I have to trademark it or something, but patience kills the buck or patience kills the bull. And I say it and I preach it, and hearing it from you, it just rings so true that the more patient you are, that's how you kill those big bucks and big bulls. And I bet you I get a message a week as somebody that killed a big buck or a big bull that says, "Hey, I like the podcast. Patience kills the buck." Like, it's always a matter of patience. Hunting, you have to be so patient. Like, and I have the opposite of what I did this year, where I made a mistake, where I was hunting a really nice, tall, heavy mule deer, 170-inch plus, and followed him over into this bowl, and he was with there was 2 does and a 2-point, and then he was with another doe, so 3 does and a 2-point, him 5 deer. And so I worked all the way around. I got the wind right. I came in. It's this open sagebrush hill. It's wide open in there. And I got into place, and I could see some of the deer feeding and perfect. And I got into range, and then all of a sudden I have those 2 does and a 2-point, and they feed right by me, like right at 40 yards right there. Just perfect. The buck's going to be right behind him somewhere. And I wait, and I keep thinking, patience kills the buck. Just sit here and wait. And I keep waiting, and pretty soon my mind starts playing tricks on me, as it will, and as it probably did on your bull, that you fought the urge to make a cow call, to make a bugle, to go see if he was there. So I fought the urge, and I just waited for him. But I didn't see anything. I didn't see that buck, that doe, and it's wide open sagebrush. I'm just thinking, God, that buck, he must have got out of here. He must have gone over the ridge, and now he chased that doe over that ridge, and pretty soon I've convinced myself that he's gone over the ridge. These deer feed by me. They feed way into the next timber patch. I've waited in there for 15, 20 minutes, nothing. So I think, okay, well, got to make it to the next ridge, and then I'll be able to spot that buck from there, maybe relocate him and get another play. And so I stand up, and I take a couple steps, and I glass the sagebrush around me. There's nothing around me, and so I start taking off for that ridge, and I took maybe 3 steps, and that buck hops out of that sagebrush, and he must have been bedded 35, 40 yards away from me the whole time, just bedded tight in that sagebrush. And I if I would have had patience, I'm sure I would have killed that buck. I just, I let my mind and I let those thoughts of him going over the ridge control me, and I didn't stay true to what I believed. I didn't believe the buck was still there. You almost always have to believe that buck is still there, that bull is still there, and that usually pays off. So I did the opposite this year, spooked that buck, never found him again, never got another play at him. But that was one of my stocks this year where I didn't show the right amount of patience, and I didn't believe that buck was still there, and it bit me in the hind end.
Yep. And the same thing happened to me on my deer hunt too. It was a 200-inch buck in the timber, and if I would have just waited for 5 more minutes, I realistically probably would have killed him, because he was feeding up to the crest of the hill, and I ran into him at 30 yards. He was just on the other side of a giant clump of brush, and so he hurt us because we were so close, but I watched him bound away, and it was just because of the lack of patience. And I second guessed myself, and I was like, I'm just going to go 30 yards farther, and then I'm going to set right there. And it bit me in the butt. It cost me a mega giant. So yeah, it happens all the time, man.
It so does, doesn't it? Yeah. Last weekend, we had like a rut fest in front of us, and I was with my buddy Dan, and we sat there for 20 minutes waiting for something to happen. I had a buck at 70 yards, and he was with a bunch of does, and he was a good shooter. There was more in the bottom down there. And you sit there, and I told Dan, let's just keep patient, and nothing happened. And pretty soon I told Dan, I was like, man, if we can just get 10, 15 more yards, I can shoot that buck right there. Like, let's get down and we'll belly crawl. He had filled out the day before, and so he was ranging for me. And so I said, let's get down, let's belly crawl. And it was a hillside, so we put our feet first and then slid on our backs, and we're sliding down to that buck. And we just get to about where we're getting ready to pop up and shoot. I can see a sagebrush that I'm trying to sneak in front of me, and there's a giant 170-inch deer that walked right up to 5 yards, and I point to it to Dan. He walks up to our feet, dang near at 3 yards, and stares at us. If we just would have stayed still, I would have shot that buck at 20 yards, no problem, And here he walks up and meets us right there. But yeah, it's always a game of patience, and like you say, it's always hindsight when you bust them or it doesn't work out. We actually stayed late on our backs for quite a while and waited for him to spook off before we tried to get up and shoot, but it didn't pan out. But yeah, it's just amazing. Patience does kill the buck or the bull. It's so cool when you get it right and you you show off those patience, or you practice those patience, and it comes together for you, because it really is the key. But yeah, failure's a prerequisite. You're gonna fail a lot before you get it right.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. And all you can do is keep trying.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so you finished up, killed that nice bull in Wyoming. It was a nice 6 point, and then you've been all over since then. What other hunts have you been on?
Yeah, a lot of filming. A friend drew a non-resident drew a tag for the wilderness down here, and her and her boyfriend came down, and I took them in, and it was a really fun hunt. And she killed her first 6 point, so that was cool to be a part of that. And then Hunter Mason, Brandon Mason's boy, he drew a good limited entry deer tag down here, and so I got to go video that and experience that with him. And that was his first buck, and a solid 170 type buck, and so that was pretty darn awesome. And then my dad's first bull that we discussed earlier, that was right after that. So being able to film and be a part of all three of those firsts for those guys was pretty special. And I tell people all the time, people are like, oh, you got stuck running the camera or doing this, and it's like, man, I have just as much fun watching these guys, these first timers especially, shooting their first elk or their first buck, and sharing that joy or that passion with them. That's just as awesome to me. And so October was great. That's what I did all of October, and it was some of the best hunts I've ever been on was with those guys this fall. So it was just a great fall, lots of success, some failure, which is how I like to keep it.
Me too. But, keeps me hungry.
Exactly. You got to have some failure, but we did lay down some great animals this year, and got to see some really cool stuff. And I shot a bear too earlier. I forgot about that, but I was hunting deer. So get this bear is cruising around at 10,000 feet and digging up pine nuts. These Clark's nutcrackers are caching their pine nuts, and this bear is just up there digging them up. And so this thing's, running all over the place, smelling and running back and forth, moving, digging, and it ran right into me and my camera guy. I was like, I hate to mess with a bear when I'm deer hunting in September, for crying out loud. But this sucker came up, and he didn't really want to leave. And so, yeah, I shot him. I shot him with that new, it's called the Nightfall Extreme from Bloodsport. And it's a big hybrid expandable. And so I tested that thing out on him and shot him at 40 yards, and he went like 20 yards and lost about a gallon of blood in between there. And so that was kind of a fun little deal too. It's always fun to get a rep under your belt in the middle of the season on an off species animal, but it's fun testing those big broadheads out too.
Okay, so that I don't think I've seen that one. So it's a Night Force Extreme. What's the cutting diameter on it? Do you remember?
Yeah, it's the Nightfall Extreme. I think it's something like 1.25 inch fixed and 2-inch expandable.
Oh, wow.
And so it's just massive. I wouldn't shoot it at an elk, or maybe probably not even a deer, but a thin, bears don't have thick ribs at all. It's something like that. I was like, yeah, this is perfect for a bear. But yeah, I haven't shot anything with it, and so it was good to test it out on that thing, which brings me to my next point. So I did an autopsy basically on that bear, and then on my bulls this year. And I think me and you should get together and do a video on shot placement on big game, and how to work angles, and what's a good shot, is a quarter-inch torch shot good, et cetera, but some dialogue and stuff. And I think it would help guys out a lot. I get a lot of questions, and post some kill shots on Instagram, and guys are thinking you're gut shooting something, but you're shooting a hard quartering away animal, and you X-ring them. And so I did a lot of that this year too, with just anatomy, videoing the path of the arrow and what kind of organs are where, doing like complete autopsies on these animals. So definitely have some exciting things coming down the pike.
Man, yeah. How cool. It's so important, isn't it, Dan? Like, as you fall in love with bow hunting, you start, you really have to pay attention to all those angles. Like, bad things can really happen, with the bow or with the rifle. Like, you have to make your best shot when you get a chance at an animal, and you really have to have the best angle at it. and you don't want things to go wrong. And so even that deer that I had a slightly quartering towards, it wasn't a big enough window for me to stick that arrow where I wanted to stick it. But you're right, that quartering away is such a great shot, aiming for that offside shoulder. But you do, like, you have to be so careful, and elk are so tough. They're a prime example. And I hear guys wondering that too. Like, you just got to be really careful. You don't want to catch one lung on an elk. Like, you have to catch both lungs. You know, he'll die with a one lung shot, but they can go forever. They can go miles with a one lung shot, and they can go miles with a gut shot. Their shoulders are so thick, I have a hard time getting through them. Like, it really has to be a precise shot to kill them. But I think that'll be super interesting, Dan, because it is such a game of angles and anatomy of how those vitals sit in there, and it'll surprise you high or low or a little back or, you know, a little quartering towards what that arrow will do. And sometimes I notice too that when I shoot at animals, they tend to turn right as the arrow hits them or right before the arrow hits them. And so my angle is different when I get up to that animal than what I was shooting at sometimes, you know, but it's so important in bow hunting to take the right angle, and you don't have that shock that a bullet has. And so, you know, you need them to bleed to death, and therefore you need vitals. You need lungs, heart, or liver, you know, to kill them or get really lucky. But on a bad shot, I mean, you know, I've seen it before, and you know, a bad shot, I would say like 1 out of 10 you get, you know, or you know, maybe it's 1 out of 5 or something that, you know, you see somebody hit a femoral artery or they get enough blood loss, or you sick them up enough, you know, shots in, you know, low in the brisket will make them pretty sick and things. But, you know, really, if you don't make that shot, you know, lungs, heart, or liver, the vitals, you don't have a good chance of getting that animal. They're just so tough and can go so far.
Yep, exactly. And so you put that on top of getting close to animal, making the right moves, actually getting a shot at them, getting a shot at an animal and killing it are two different things. And so, yeah, it's so important. It might be the most important aspect of the harvest is making a good shot and know how an animal is going to duck and being able to anticipate that and where is a good shot. And that's, yeah, I just think we need to talk about it, and it'll go over well. And a lot of guys wonder that too. I mean, especially frontals. Do you shoot an elk frontal? I hear all sorts of stuff these days, and it blows my mind. But I mean, do you? I mean, are there good situations to shoot an elk frontal?
You know, I think you can definitely kill him frontal, but it's just such a small window to hit. And this is just my personal preference and belief. So this isn't like a hard rule or a hard law or anything. I'm just having the conversation with you authentically as we bring it up. But for me, a frontal shot will definitely kill an animal. It runs, angles are good in archery, and you can get in the front of that chest and run the length of him. He won't go far. But for me, it's such a small window to hit that if I don't have him super close, like inside 20 yards, I don't feel comfortable with it. And I think the reason is because I've lost an elk shooting him in the front before, you know. And so I've gone through that heartache where I just like, no, I'm not, you know, I'm going to wait for the right angle. But it is lethal to shoot him in the front, and you make that good shot. And I have shot deer and antelope there, and I can't remember an elk right now that I've shot right in that front, you know, but they die when you get a good shot. But I just think it's closer. Your margin for error is smaller. The spot you have to hit is smaller. So it's not like a broadside shot. It's a smaller spot in there, and you miss a little left and a little right, or a little right, and bad things can happen. And so for me, like, I will shoot that shot if he's 20 yards or less, and I know I can hit that exact spot. And it's also an angle deal. Like, you say quartering towards, like, how quartering towards, you know? Like, there's a quartering towards that you should not take that shot because that shoulder's in the way. You can't get into the vitals where you need to get it, you know?
No, that's exactly it. That's what we need to discuss, and I agree with you 100% on your mentality with frontals. But I mean, this is the type of questions that we see all the time, and it's definitely, let's bust out some examples and talk about it. I think we could put together something great.
What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, I'm right with you. 20 yards and under, the right situation, straight on to me. I mean, if they're quartered at all, your window's pretty much gone. So they got to be straight on and 20 yards and under. And I think I've killed one elk frontal, and it was 8 yards. So I don't do it very often, and I don't feel comfortable personally doing it past 20.
Me
But
neither.
yeah, it's too risky for me, and so that's just my personal opinion. But I know guys kill all sorts of animals past 30, 40 yards even frontal. So yeah, I mean, it's everybody has their mentality and their mindset, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, I just don't. As good of a shot as I, not that I'm a great shot, but as proficient as I am with my bow, if I see a deer that's looking straight at me at 40 yards, I just won't take. It's just too small of a window to hit.
Yeah.
It's just any left or right, and you're in a bad situation. And so I just wait. And even that, I think that's what you learn over time when you're bow hunting. Like, you just learn the angles to take, and patience kills the buck also applies to the shot. And those deer sometimes, if they're just slightly quartering towards, like, I'll just wait. I just wait to get a better angle because, my mentality is if I'm going to shoot at him, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to either make the shot or I'm not going to take the shot. And I'm definitely not going to wound anything out there or going to do, my best not to take any of those marginal shots that is going to end up in a wounded animal. So, yeah, I wait for those angles and I wait for the right angle, and that quartering towards is a horrible angle. You really want them broadside or quartered away.
Yep. Yep. And that's, once again, it kind of all ties back into my season, and both bulls I shot in that bear were either broadside or slightly cordoned away. And all three of those elk died within eyesight, or two of those elk and the bear, they all died within eyesight because of that angle. So it all comes back to that, making confident shots or shots that you're confident in because they work, and not throwing up a prayer. You never want to do that and throw up a prayer and just fling one. You got to shoot like like I'm going to kill that sucker right there, and you'll be fine.
Shot placement is just so important, though, isn't it? So
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that'll be a really good piece. Well, man, you had to put together just some epic footage this year with your dad's hunt and all your hunting. You got to be sitting on a pile of footage. You're excited to get out for Beyond the Grid.
Yep. Dad's bull there in the breaks will be on the grid, and some of these TV shows with some of my elk hunts and stuff, and so much good footage this year. A lot of good elk rut activity. The bugling was a little less this year, I would say. I know there's some localized action that guys were getting into, but all in all, I didn't see as good of bugling action this year, but you got a couple days of it, and we had some really close encounters and called in some bulls, a few bulls within 10 yards with just a cow call. So yeah, anyway, lots of good footage this year. Lots of big animals hit the dirt, and it was another tough but successful year for sure.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to see your episodes come out. I get so much motivation from your episodes. You're just you're a bow hunter through and through, and so I relate to you a lot. And then you're so good at the videography, the capturing it, and your field producing. I sent you a message when I saw your Wyoming mule deer hunt. I was just so impressed at the episode that you put together on the Eastman's Hunting TV, your Wyoming mule deer. I love watching your elk stuff. I love sharing in your success and can relate to it so much. So I can't wait to see what you put together this year.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. That's why I always enjoy talking to you, because we're definitely on the same page with that, and the passion is high and the drive is high, and it's what we love to do. So I appreciate you just as much, and your successes and your chats with you, and I, like always, appreciate all your content on social media as well.
Yeah, well, right on, man. Congratulations on your season. Thanks again for taking the time. I swear I could fill up my whole podcast with just talking to you. Like you say, it's so fun to compare mindsets, and it's so funny. Like, we hang out here and there. We haven't shared a hunt together, but we're so similar. Like, everything you talk about, it speaks to me, just because I'm a bow hunter and I've learned the same hard lessons that you have, that we have such similar approaches, it feels like. But I just relate to you so well, and you're so introspective, the way you analyze your hunting and your approach to it. So, man, I really enjoy it. But thanks again, Dan. We got to do it again soon and catch up here in person.
Sounds good, man. Looking forward to it. It's a pleasure as always.
All right.
Thanks, Brian. Bye-bye.
Yep. Thank you. All right, guys, that's a wrap. Again, just a great conversation with Dan. He's such a great guest. I get so fired up after talking to him. I'm just ready to go bow hunt and ready to keep improving my craft. But he's such a intelligent and he's so great at sharing his ideas and theories on things. And you can see I picked up another saying that I really like, believing in the process. I maybe said it too many times in the podcast, but I really liked, it just ties to so much of what we believe in and what we do as bow hunters and as Western hunters, and so I really like that saying. So definitely gonna incorporate that in my lingo, but not use it too much. But I kept coming back to it in the podcast. I was just so drawn to it. But again, thanks to Dan for being on and sharing so much great information. That guy's just a savage in the mountains. He's so driven and goes so hard, and that's why he finds consistent success. He just made a decision as a young man that he was going to be consistently successful and commit to his bow, and he did that and is doing that. And I know he's going to come up with some more great critters, as he's already got a bunch of great harvests, bulls and bucks and animals that we all dream about. Dan's out doing it and chasing them and harvesting them. So I really learned a lot from Dan. Just love our conversation. So thanks to him again for being on. Sponsor for today's show is Sitka. Again, I just believe in Sitka wholeheartedly. I just absolutely love their gear. Just the best technical hunting clothing out there. They just got a system for all temperatures, all weather, whether it's wet, like go out to the Olympic Peninsula steelhead fishing. I'm always wearing my Sitka gear out there. Whether it's warm weather like early season antelope or these early high country mule deer like I had in Nevada and Colorado this year. Or all the way late, like late season muleys and everything in between. They just have the right gear and the right system for you. So if you're in the market for any new gear this year, make sure to check out Sitka. And thanks a bunch to those guys for sponsoring and believing in the podcast. I really appreciate the support. Yeah, and with that, see you over there at Eastman's. Gosh, it's just been a great hunting season. I've seen so many great critters come across my feed. So just excited to get back together with these guys. I talked about going to those shows, and so yeah, I'll go to those shows with Ike and Guy, and of course we'll try to record some really good podcasts with them, and also get some other guests that are at the shows. And yeah, I just hope to meet some new people and have some more interesting conversations. So just excited to get together with those guys, Brandon Mason, Scott Reekers, the whole crew, Dan Pickar. I'm not sure which shows he's going to, but yeah, just excited to get together with those guys and hang out and hear about their hunting seasons and then plans for the future. So excited about that. I just got a cut back of the Alaska hunt this year, that Alaska Haul Road hunt I did for caribou up there. It was a really cool hunt. We captured a lot of great video, and then Brandon Mason did the adventure hunt up there in Alaska. You might have heard the podcast that we did about that, and so they kind of paired the two together. So I mean, it is just a highlight reel of film about hunting Alaska. No commercials. That's where that Beyond the Grid, that internet TV show, is so great. Like, you just don't have the same platform of like outdoor TV where you have to break for a commercial and then come back from a commercial, explain where you're at or what you're doing. You can just tell the story in its entirety. So I really liked it. And the cool thing is it's going to be out on the internet. All you guys can see it. I know I feel so bad when it's on the outdoor channel and we, not everybody gets the outdoor channel, and I just have no other way to share it. So this will be my Beyond the Grid debut. I'm on there again. Brandon Mason, we share his hunt, my hunt, but the final cut was really good. I really enjoyed it. I watched it last night in bed with my wife, and they just did a great job at editing everything together. It's just so tough to tell the story in its entirety, everything that happens. You just have to kind of highlight things here and there, but did a great job of editing it together, and I'm really proud of it and can't wait to share it to you guys. So we'll be on the lookout for that. I'll push it on my social media when it comes out. I haven't heard a release date on it yet, but just excited to release it to everybody. So yeah, pumped for that. And I know, let's see what else is going on. Yeah, just trying to plan trying to work on my craft, just trying to work on my shooting. I've kind of turned a corner on my shooting. I'm back off the trigger. I know. I did a whole podcast about it, but I just can't, like, I don't shoot as well as I shoot. Like, I like the anchor more with the handheld releases, and I've just come down to it that I can't force any shots. To choose when it goes isn't my best execution, and when you're shooting at an animal, you have to make your absolute best execution. So I'm back to shooting back tension only, not forcing any shots, sticking to my practice. I'm just shooting really good groups, and then when I'm shooting at critters, if I need a fast shot to go, it's just not going to happen for me. I either need the couple 2-3 seconds to hold still so I can execute a good shot, or I'm not going to shoot. And it's just the way it is for me. I can't slip back into bad habits or not be shooting my very best. So anyways, just working on my shooting and working on my fitness. I'm so busy with this house and things and the hunts I've been on, but I mean, I'm running every single night, running in the dark, snowing, and me and my dog Gunny, we're going for it. I just want to be in the absolute best shape I can. That last hunt I did in the deep snow in the mountains wore me out. And it just makes me realize how important being in good shape is and good fitness and how much it helps on a hunt. And so, I'm not going to rest on what I've accomplished before. I'm just going to put in the hard work to have the absolute best hunting season I can in 2019. Everything in my control, I'm going to do. And so, just working really hard at my craft to improve and to get better. I'm really enjoying the process, to use the term one more time. Embracing the process and working hard and putting in the hard work and then sharing that with you guys and my motivations. And I just can't wait for these next hunts coming up. I'm trying to put together that Arizona hunt, go down with my buddy Dan again. I really want to put down a nice coos down there, and I know there's small targets, longer shots, and so my shooting I just have to be on my game down there. So excited, we're trying to put that together for like late January after the ATA, and so that should be a good hunt. And then I booked my tickets to New Zealand for April. It's just unreal, like this average working class guy like me can go on these amazing trips. And so, I'm going to go to New Zealand and hunt tahr and probably try to hunt some free range red stag and see what else I can get into down there. But I'm just super pumped. It's just a beautiful island there, and it's a 20-hour flight from LA, which is crazy. But I'm really excited. Going to go down there for a couple weeks and do some bow hunting. So I got that to look forward to. So I just need to make sure I'm on my game, in good shape, shooting 100 and have my head right and motivated and keep working hard here. So all right, you guys, really appreciate the support. Thanks again to Dan for a great podcast. I got some really good ones coming up I'm excited to release to you guys, so keep on the lookout for those. And, keep working hard towards your goals. There's no shortcuts. Hard work, discipline, dedication, it all pays off in the end. And that's what I'm going to make sure I'm doing for 2019, and I know you guys are too. It's been really fun to share in your success. You guys have put down some great critters this year. We'll all keep working hard together and making each other better. So thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Check in with you guys next week.